Hello, welcome everyone to another video. In this video, I want to show you how I made this little menu here. And yeah, the reason why I made this menu was because I wanted to be able to change the colors of my plugin in real time so that I can actually come up with reasonable color schemes rather than this crap that I had first. Yeah, and I think it works pretty well. I can just really dial in the flavor that I want and then press OK and go back and yay, got it. And then of course, it serializes as well. And the reason for that is because I used the app properties from JUCE app properties or application properties or something like that. Yeah, it is basically an object that creates an XML file that sits in the app data of the personal data. And then, well, it adds the things that you add to it, like whether or not tooltips should be drawn or whether or not the pop-up window that shows the value of the parameter should be drawn. And it saves the different colors for the things that I define as thing. The problem is just I always had to go here and change the number in order to try a different color. Obviously that does not feel very nice and it did not really help me. So I needed to make a menu. In an earlier build of NEL, I made a menu. When I go to the master branch of NEL, it should still be there. Somewhere options or something, settings editor. And the way it worked was I had a structure settings and then I had thousands of derived methods for the different pages, like the help page or the thanks page or the about me page. And yeah, if you just look around here, then you will notice that all of these classes look really similar, kind of repetitive. I have to redefine all these things again and again just so that I can put my objects in there. And then I decided that this sucks and I need a more programmatic way. Programmatic, is that the right word? I guess so. And if you know my videos or if you know PluginScript, the framework from Blue Cat Audio, then this should sound familiar to you, because in PluginScript there is always the DSP script and the UI. I could just open something. It has a bunch of parameters and they have a default layout, and that is just because I defined a bunch of parameters in my DSP file. But I didn't define any layout or something. That just happened automatically. And that is because PluginScript makes a layout for you for the parameter count that you have. And if you are not more specific about that, then you can only change the layout a little bit with these controls, and that's it. The way it does that is using a language called KUIML, which is basically just the same as XML. They use that to make it easier for people to just come up with DSP scripts without having to worry about the parameter design and stuff like that, which is like one of the most powerful features of this plugin. On the one hand, because it enables me to be very quick with my experiments, but it's also a limiting factor, because whenever you actually want to change something about the UI, then you have to learn this weird KUIML language. But I decided to still go for a similar approach for my menu, because it's just a menu and it just needs to have the things in a list or something like that. So what I did was I created an XML file that I added to this project, and then I said, yeah, my options menu should have options and a graphics tab and a colors tab, and in there the color selectors for each color, a help tab for the tooltip switch that can either be disabled or enabled. And the cool thing about this XML file is I could just add some more menus here, and the moment I would do that, they would pop up in the plugin, at least if I rebuild this project. Otherwise Visual Studio would not notice that I changed something. And the cool thing is also I can just add any attributes to all these things, and then I can use them in my code. For example, with the tooltip, I can just add different attributes like that. I have my whole structure very nicely visualized in just 19 lines, and I can go on designing my options menu from here and don't have to go back to my C++ code. But in order to actually use something like that, you have to write a lot of code, and this video should be about that. So this is my plugin, as you know, and when I'm clicking on the options menu, then it opens the options menu and I can close it. And that is already the basic thing to happen in my plugin editor. There is a menu wrapped into your unique pointer because it only exists on demand. and a button for opening and closing the menu. In the constructor, I just set the menu to null pointer. At the beginning, it does not exist. It never exists in the beginning. In the menu button, however, I give it the things that I give to everything, and then I set the tooltip, and then I set 2 lambdas, and that might look a little bit weird now. I don't like how that looks at the moment. But anyway, first lambda is for what should happen if I click on the button, and what should happen then is I'm opening the menu. So in my menu2 namespace, there is a function called openMenu that is used then. It has the menu, it has the audio processor, the utils, it has this component, output from my layout class, which is basically just the bounds, the menu button itself, because when you open the menu, then the menu button needs to repaint. And now the other lambda is for painting the menu button. So it has these arguments, graphics G and the button itself, and then it can do something with that. And I also have a static method for that, paint menu button. I won't go through the paint menu button method. If you want to look at that, you can do that. But essentially, we are going on with the open menu function. So if menu is null pointer, so no menu exists yet, then we are loading an XML file from binary data. Then we make a value tree from that, because the XML element object of JUCE is just totally ass. I'm glad they made value tree. And then we make unique pointer menu. And as you can see, menu takes 3 arguments, actually 4, but the last one is optional. And so it's audio processor, it's utils, and it's the state of the XML file. So the menu knows about this XML file, okay? And then we take the parent component, add the menu to it, and also the bounds with the menu bounds. And else if the menu already existed, then we reset it. So we get back to normal. To make this more clear, I could say reset to null pointer. Then we repaint the open button, obviously, because it changes appearance. Now what does load XML do? Also very easy. It just uses the XML document parse with the data and size in bytes of the thing that we give it. For some reason it has to be passed to string, I don't know. I found that in the JUCE forum. Now, we construct a menu, right? So what does that mean? It means it is an object that is inheriting from component. This is a custom component that I make that is inherited from JUCE component, but it's basically the same, just some little extras. And we have a timer in it. Now we have an enum ID with some maybe cryptic looking things, but we need them later to access an array that we are making in the constructor. The thing is, we need a lot of identifiers here. So I made this enum ID to work better with that. And especially we need the ID of things. We need to know if it's menu. We need to know if it's tooltip. We need to know if it's color selector. And yeah, at the end is num IDs, so that we always know how big this enum is, even if I add some things to the array. And also how big the array is. Gladly, enums are always static const expr. So I can just put that into this array normally. The menu constructor, it has 3 arguments. No, not really. It also has a 4th argument. The menu's parent, and at the beginning, of course, this is null pointer because we just made the top layer menu thingy, and the more menus we make, the more this will not be null pointer but always the parent of it. Components constructor, the XML file, we put it as a member variable here. Also fill the name label with live. As you can see, every option has a little label at the beginning with the headline. Then there is a vector of entries, and these entries they can be the buttons for opening another menu, or they can be the buttons that open the color. Then there is a unique pointer to another submenu, and that is also null pointer unless we actually use a button to put something into it. And then there is also the color selector, which is null pointer at the beginning, and the parent is a pointer to the parent. Now we make this array with identifiers, and we make the entries with them. Then we add and make visible the label. We start the timer, and that's all we have to do. Add entries is a very big function, and it's a very important one, and that's where all the magic happens. Add entries gets the array, and then we loop through all the children from the XML file. At the beginning, the children are just graphics and help. So we loop through them, and for each child we check what is the type, and if the type is menu, which is the case because these are the things that are supposed to add another menu. As you can see, it is type menu. Then we add another submenu button, and if it's type color selector, like in this case, then we add a color selector to our vector with components. How does that work? Let's start with the SubMenu button because it's a little bit easier. So we want to make SubMenu button, push it back to the vector, give it a name and make it visible. In order to do that, we need to define an onPaint function that we give it and an onClick function that enables the button to access the SubMenu unique pointer. Gets the child of the XML file so that the XML file is like one step deeper on the current index, because as you know, we are currently looping through the children. Then it just resets this menu to a new one and makes it visible and sets the bounds. And the onPaint function for the button, it looks like this if you want to see it. But anyway, the color selector is a little bit more complicated. It has an onPaint function and it actually does the same as the other one. And also this stuff is pretty much the same, but this thing has an onClick and an onExit function, which is a bit interesting because, as you might have noticed, when you are at the Colors tab and you click on a color to change something about it, then the rest of the whole menu gets invisible. And when you click OK, undo or default, the menu gets visible again when the color thingy is closed, and that turned out to be quite a little challenge. And it works like this. When you click on something to open the color selector, then of course the usual stuff happens. We're adding the color selector to the top level component. This time though, we set the bounds. Also with the top layer components bounds called set visible all menus false. And that's a little method that I wrote, which works like this. It first of all makes the menu invisible where we're currently at. And then if there is a parent, then this parent should also call this method. And that way we traverse backwards through all the menus. The onExit method should do the opposite. So what it does is we get the top level component, we set visible the color selector false. So the color selector is gone now. And then we make all the menus visible again. And then we repaint everything. The only problem is I would like to actually get rid of the color selector at this point, call reset on it, but I got some weird crashes then. It's not a really big problem because when I close the whole, let's say I made a change, and now I'm asking myself if I can still destroy the color thingy, because obviously it is still somewhere, it's just invisible now. But when I close the menu, then it should not exist anymore, because obviously it's sitting in some submenu. That's how easy it is with my new menu. Now I don't have to write thousands of inherited classes anymore to come up with a good menu structure. And that makes a lot of sense to me, because UI design is not like the most interesting part of VST programming. Sometimes it is quite fascinating, but the menus, especially those submenus with the extra options, they are really the most boring aspect of it all. So if I happen to just randomly think, oh, I need another menu, another submenu or another functionality for my menu, then I definitely don't want to be discouraged by having to write a lot of code. I just want to adjust my XML file a little bit to get more options. Anyway, I hope you learned something, and yeah,